Hello, my friends. How are you? Did you guys have a great week? I hope you did, and welcome to another episode of A Taboo Life, where everyone has a story to tell. I'm your host, Drew Franks, or Frank for short, and I want to thank you guys again for listening. Come check out the website, ataboolife.com, where you can read some interesting articles, short stories, poems, because I am that sappy, and you can check out other content too. So check out the website, ataboolife.com. Today's guest is Miss Kandise Crocket. She is a very interesting and intriguing woman. I say that a lot when I describe my guests, but I only interview people I find interesting, and she was super interesting. She is an ICU nurse and also a foster parent, and we primarily talked about what it takes to be a foster parent, the difficulties and the joys of doing it, and why it's important for communities to have foster parents. In a perfect world, there will be no need for a foster parent, but unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world, and these people do take on responsibility that is a very heavy burden. And these kids absolutely do not deserve what they're going through, and it's a good thing that we have people like Kandise and her husband to open up their homes to these children and help them get a better life. But I'll let the episode speak for itself. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you learn as much as I did. All right, we're live. I'm here with a very special guest, and I found her through Facebook. And I'm really interested about her story, so I'm going to have her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Kandise, and I am a former foster parent who adopted children through foster care.
So, I thought this will be a pretty interesting episode because I only had some run-ins with foster parents while I was working as a cop, so I had to help put kids in foster care, even if it was just for the night. So this is pretty interesting because I want to learn more about it too, and I know there's people who are interested in adoption and foster care out there, so I'm pretty sure this is a pretty good episode for you guys who are interested in knowing more about this. So let's get started on that. How'd you get started in that?
Oh, well, for me, actually, it was a decision to be a foster parent very young. When I was in high school, I had a friend who was one of 5 children that were removed from their mother's home, and they were split up 3 different ways. He and his older sister went back with their biological father, who wasn't the greatest father because he let them be homeless with their mom. And then the younger 2 eventually was adopted and went to live with their adopted family. And then the child in the middle had a different father, so he didn't go with him, and then he ended up timing out of foster care, and that's something that's very difficult. So I think, was removed very young age, like 5, and at 18, they're like, okay, good luck with life. And so seeing the struggle that those people went through, it kind of made me want to be a part of the change and the good side, because you hear all these horrible stories, and I knew that it takes one person to want to do good, and that was what I wanted to do. It's kind of funny because that's, of all the goals in my life, that's really the only one thing that I genuinely accomplished, that I decided when I was 12. Not a ballerina,
not the astronaut.
Yeah, didn't get paid to travel the world, but I did do foster care. One of the first few dates when I realized that my husband was probably going to be the one for me, I'm like, I just want you to know that I'm going to foster at some point in my life, and I need to know if you're okay with that, because that's a deal breaker. And he said yes, and he's one of the reasons why we have our children, and that's kind of where I had that idea. I was in nursing school, and I always thought that I would have my own kids. Maybe after, they graduated, I would foster and, take care of, you hear these people that are foster for 20 years and take care of 100 children. And I'm like, oh, I'll do that. And, touch all these lives. And in nursing school, one of my clinicals was in the neonatal ICU. And so there's babies that are born addicted to drugs. And at this point, they were like 6 months and 9 months old. So the effects of the drugs were not necessarily there. Like, they were growing and they were healthy, but there was really no way for them to go. Like, there weren't enough homes, there weren't enough places for them to go. Their parents hadn't completed their case plan or finished rehab or whatever their specific situation was. And so they were just living in the ICU at a hospital where occasionally a volunteer would come and hold them and give them special time. But, those moments that you connect with human beings start from day one. And they were just sitting in this crib like most of the day, and the nurses try to come, but they're also taking care of other babies. And that's when I kind of came home and told my husband, I'm like, I think we need to do this sooner than later. So later that year, after I graduated nursing school, we started the licensing process to be foster care.
Come a little closer to the mic.
Sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, so later that year, we got licensed to be foster parents.
What, actually, something I always was interested in, what is the process for getting licensed?
It's different in different counties, but they kind of follow the similar pattern. Is you have to, one, be able to handle like your life in general. Some people have a misconception that you are foster parents and then you make money off of it, and that's not the case. The amount of money they give you is not anything worth like being responsible for another child for 24 hours a day. So it's not about the money. You have to actually show financially, physically your home. It gets inspected. You have to actually have all of the if you have a bed or a dresser, everything needs to be ready before you actually have a child. So you can't say, oh, I want to foster, and then they give you furniture or give you, like, you have to be ready and for them to call you and walk into the door. But there's actually a class. I don't remember how many weeks, maybe like 12-week class. Every Monday they go through what is foster care, what kind of children you get, what kind of strategies are with the children, talking about the parents. They're kind of going more towards keeping the foster parents involved with the bio parents to kind of work together, because the original goal is always, if possible, reunification with the parents. And they're kind of setting foster parents up to understand that in Fantasyland, we'll take these children for a couple months. Their parents will accomplish whatever task, get a job, go through rehab, do whatever they need to do, and then the children will go home into a safe environment and live happily ever after. Yeah. That's always plan A. And so sometimes people go into foster care if they can't have kids or something, and they'll say, oh, well, I'll just adopt through foster care. But that's not a really simple process, so they kind of educate you on how all those things work. And but they get to know you. You write down a little bit about your personality, talk about what kind of kids that you can take, because they genuinely try to match you with children that will be a good fit. So my husband and I are very sporty, and we like outdoorsy, but we're not like big fishermen people. So if a kid really likes to fish, then if there's a home that's available that has certain hobbies that match, like again, that's plan A. They'll match all the children with the people that will be a right fit, that have things in common, or someone can't have a pet, or someone's allergic, or stuff like that. So once you complete this class, which has a lot of role playing and kind of helps you put yourself in their shoes, you watch some videos based on the children and what the kind of experiences that they go through. You have to have several referrals from friends, family, and coworkers. Neighbors also. So we had just moved, we had just bought our house. We got to know our neighbors real quick. We're like, hey, nice to meet you. Can you like write on this form? People don't call the cops on us. You don't think we're a drug house. Like, you know, like, I don't know. I mean, like, we really didn't know people, but we kind of like got to know people real quick, because you have to have someone in your neighborhood vouch for you. You have to have someone that you work with vouch for you. And you have to have personal connections with other people that say, hey, yeah, this is a person that can handle something like this, because it's a big responsibility to take on parenting another child for however long period that is. Yeah. And then once you meet the class, again, your home gets certified. We have to do certain safety things.
Like what?
So specifically for us, we have the sliding glass door, and then we live on like the water reserve thing. So we had to have 2 child locks to not be able to get out. Like, you can't just have one lock. You can't have like a stick in the door.
Yeah.
You specifically have to have 2 locks that prevent a child from getting out to where they could get to the water.
Really?
So we had to drill. You see those up there where it's a lock on top and a lock on bottom. Just specifically that, like a small child couldn't reach that, so they couldn't get outside to like potentially drown.
Would you mind if I take a picture of that while we're talking? Yeah. So go ahead and continue.
Yeah, so we had to have a fire extinguisher in our downstairs, a fire extinguisher in our upstairs. We had to have lids on our garbage cans, which I thought was strange, but I guess it's just a really easy way to keep out any type of infestation or bugs or anything. So you have to show that you have a lid for each garbage can. You have to show that all of your vitamins, medications, anything like that is physically locked. So you can't just have a medicine cabinet. It has to be locked. So we had to buy like these little metal things for like my vitamin C, lock it. Any chemicals in the garage have to be in a closed thing and locked.
Even the stuff for the cleaning supplies and the thing?
Yes, so we have magnetic locks on our cabinets. Like, you had to show that everything was locked and like basically baby proofing for, like a 2-year-old or any child that comes in, just to make sure that they're safe.
So after your house gets certified, it gets the okay to go, what happens next?
Well, while we're waiting for everything to get approved, usually, and maybe not always, but there's a little bit of a desperation for homes. We, to backtrack a little, my husband and I bought this house really at the bottom of the market. And for the 2 of us, we didn't have kids. We were, still deciding if we were going to have kids. And we're like, well, we don't really need this big house, but it's just the price we couldn't beat. So we have a 5-bedroom house. And then when they came in, they're like, oh, look at all these empty bedrooms you have. And we're like, well, we just want to get licensed for 2. Maybe we'll get licensed for 3 just to keep the children together. But like, according to their process, you can have up to 5 children. And they're like, okay, well, we'll license you for 3, but let's keep an open mind and stuff like that. So before we were actually officially approved, they called us and said that we had some brothers and sisters that had been removed, unfortunately, for the 2nd time. And they were already in foster care, but they were all in separate homes. And so they asked us if we would be considering taking these children and the possibility that we would adopt them, because it was already the 2nd removal. Their story didn't look like it was going to have a good reunification story. And so they wanted us to kind of know what the potential would be. And this was even before we were like officially, they kind of planted that seed in our head. And so finally we got approved. Every box was checked off and whatever their county paperwork is. And very like days later, they called us with an emergency placement because one of the children from that group was having some issues with some of the other children in the home. So that home already had 3 children, but they had 1 bed available. So when these children are removed, they're placed with who has room. So he was with these other children. And, even though like all the children are from similar situations, but different, and sometimes they're competitive for just basic survival instincts. Like they get really defensive about food or toys, or because they don't actually own or have anything. So he was kind of having a hard time, and they called us and they said the foster parents said that they can't take him back. And we said, oh, well, let us think about it. And they said, well, you need to let us know because we need to find a home for him before daycare closes. So he was dropped off at daycare and didn't know he wasn't going to go back. Caseworker picked him up, and we talked about it. We talked with, we would consider this, but, getting brothers and sisters together, we're like, we don't know what we're doing. We've never been parents before. We thought maybe 1, we'd figure it out, but we decided we would accept this child and see what we could do. And so he came and was the cutest little thing you've ever seen. I remember I was standing there our caseworker, Brian opened the door for our caseworker, and he came running into the house and ran into my arms and gave me the biggest hug of my life. and I didn't really know what to do, because I was expecting someone shy and timid and to be scared, and he was just the joy that he had, like, kind of put me off guard, and that joy he definitely still has now. But I was like, okay, we can do this, and that's how we got our very first placement. And then just over the course of the next couple months, the case plan for his siblings was still kind of not going the way that people would have hoped. And so they said, his brothers and sisters are in different homes. How would you feel about putting them together? Because again, we have this big empty house. And, we still were like, I don't know if we can do that. That's so much. And we spoke about it with his parents. Actually live very close by, and we were talking about it over dinner with them. And they're like, if there's anything that we can do, we'll support you. We think that this is something that could be important. And they said that they'll be here for us with childcare, babysitting, like whatever we need. And so we thought, if we have the room and we have the support, it's kind of our responsibility to say yes. So over the next couple months, we got the brothers and sisters one at a time, kind of joined in our house. And the first boy that we got, when he was upset, he wouldn't really cry or get upset for his bio parents or anybody. He would miss his sisters, because at the first home that he was at, even though he didn't live with his sisters, he saw them at daycare.
Oh my God.
And so then he never didn't see his sisters, and that was really hard for him. And we realized how important it was to keep brothers and sisters together. And so we got him in July, and by October we had all of them. And then and that's how we got to be full-fledged, head-on foster parents.
I know you don't want to go in details of the actual kids and parents, but can you tell us what was the situation? How come they were in foster care?
So in a lot of situations, there's a form of abuse, neglect, and sometimes both. Sometimes the parents are in jail. Sometimes they'll do a drug bust in a crack house. A friend of ours, their children were found in a drug bust, and there's like children in the room, and they were removed and things like that. Ours specifically was abuse and neglect. And I don't want to bring it down too much, but like all these children lived with several adults in a 2 or 3 bedroom house, and the adults would do drugs during the daytime, abuse them if they got out of control. They wouldn't feed them, and they would lock them in the corner room. And all the children, the second time they were removed, all the children were just like infested with lice.
Oh my God.
Some of the children were older, like 7, and they were put in the diaper because they didn't want to let the children out to go to the bathroom. So, and this is, again, like the second time they were removed. The first time they were removed, they were in foster care for almost 2 years for their case plan. And the mom finally completed the case plan, and everyone was like super excited because, in the end of the day, these parents, they don't wake up and just decide they're going to be jerks. Like something happened to them that they don't have the tools that they need to take care of other people because they're missing something. Or at least I try to think that it's not their choice. Yeah. And I think that she genuinely cared for these kids. I just don't think that she had the desire to put in the work or the knowledge of how to manage it. And I think that when she got all of her children back, she kind of just slipped back into old habits, and they were only home for 6 months before they were removed again. And unfortunately, in that 6-month time, one of the children just weren't allowed to go to school to the point where they had to repeat a grade. So they were home just long enough to be absent from school, so long that they had to repeat a grade. And when we got them, like we had to like check our list to double check our ages. We're like, wait a minute, we were told we were getting this, and this. And I'm like, you don't look like a 5-year-old. But they were so malnourished that they were in the failure to thrive category. So my 5-year-old was small enough to wear 2T clothes, which are clothes for
toddler.
a 2-year-old. And that was like just kind of a realization and of, the situation that they were in. But also you can tell the different kinds of foster homes they came from, because they all came from different homes. One child came with like a box, like from Amazon or something, just like empty cardboard box with maybe an outfit for like 3 days, and none of the clothes fit him properly. So we had like no clothes for this guy. And then one of the younger ones did come with like a sippy cup. They gave us like a week's worth of diapers and probably enough clothes for a week. So that was kind of nice to at least get a little bit. And then one of the girls came with, like suitcases and bags, and she had a bicycle and all these things. So you could really tell the different situations of what they were living in because, well, first of all, again, foster parents don't get a crazy amount of money. So a lot of times when they buy clothes for the kids, or there's different organizations that kind of help with clothes, or the foster community kind of swaps clothes, but they have to keep the clothes because when a kid leaves, they'll get another one, and they need to have those clothes for them to wear. So since we were brand new, we didn't have any clothes, we didn't have any toys, we didn't have anything. So it took us a little bit of time to kind of acquire those things, but just even feeding them like nutritious food and watching them grow and get to like a healthy weight and a healthy size was just a huge excitement and accomplishment. Like when we would go to the doctor's appointments and they would be, in the 20th percentile, we were just so happy.
So you're not adopting them, right? You're foster kids.
We fostered them for a period of time.
And why don't you explain the difference between adoption and foster? Because I got confused with it myself for the past couple of years. Like I always thought they were one and the same.
Absolutely. So, sorry. So like I said, plan A is always for whatever the situation the parents is, they want it to be temporary, parents can fix it, move on, get their kids back. So plan B is for the children to live with a relative of the parents, so they're still in the family. I don't really know how many letters down the plans are for adoption, but ultimately they really want the children to have some kind of permanence. So usually the parents have about 12 months to complete their case plan. They have tasks that they need to accomplish. And if they don't complete that case plan, they often get extensions. Like in real life, they get extensions. Children are in foster care for even 3 years before they're adopted. Sometimes they never get adopted. Sometimes it's 5 years. So when they were with us, they would have to go to visitations. And because of their safety situation, all their visitations were supervised. So a caseworker would pick up our children from school early. So everyone knew our children were leaving, which is always kind of a stigma. Pick them up, take them to the center where the parent would come and meet them. And then, so they would have visitation. And then if the mom did show up, sometimes they would be happy when they came home. Sometimes they would pee themselves when they came home from anxiety, PTSD. It's a very emotionally traumatizing situation.
Do you know what triggered that?
I don't know. Fear of going back, or fear of not going back, or the children just kind of regress in general with a significant emotional situation, and every visit was really hard on them. Some of them sometimes they would get excited and say, oh, hopefully we can go back home, and but sometimes they would just have like a hard time because they would just bring back a lot of the bad things that had happened to them. But after a certain point, mom would miss a lot of visits. So instead of just being already emotionally upset from seeing her and being in that weird place and missing school, they would go, caseworker would come, pick them up, take them to that facility, and then she wouldn't show. And then they would just be sitting there waiting for them, and it would be devastating. And that's something hard to recover, something that I can't really relate, of course, and something that I can't always comfort them when they were home from that, because it's a very conflicting feeling that these children have for their foster parents, because we kind of treat them as their own children, but then they still have like this love and devotion to their biological parents. So sometimes it's hard for them to seek comfort from us because
it's confusing.
It's absolutely confusing. So, and then eventually the caseworker kind of got strict with her and said, if you're not going to come, you have to let us know. You have to stop picking up these kids from school and taking them and just having you not show up. So she would cancel. And then if I picked them up from school on Wednesdays or whatever day it was that we would do visits, they would know that she canceled on them. And then they would have the rejection. Why didn't my mom show up? Why doesn't she want to see me? Stuff like this. And then after a little while, she eventually said that she wasn't going to stop doing drugs and that they should just stop testing her because it's just a waste of time.
What drugs was he on?
I don't know all the details of all that stuff. We were just kind of focused on the child.
Yeah.
I know there was a few different things, But so eventually she's like, I'm not going to stop doing drugs. And my husband and I had to put our foot down and say, well, she needs to either try or she needs to let these kids move on. Because this disappointment, this rejection, this not showing up is just devastating. And they can't heal if they keep having that wound ripped open over and over. So our caseworker said that he had the come to Jesus talk, which he has a lot with his bio family. And she said, okay, well, then I'll just stop seeing them. And so she kind of voluntarily stopped doing visitation. And even though she still technically had a case plan and she could still accomplish it and change her mind later, we kind of knew then that it was going to go towards adoption. So that was probably winter time. I think their last visit that they ever saw, which of course they never knew which one would be the last one, was right before the holidays. And so the holidays were a little emotional, and it had been the longest they had gone without seeing their bio mom, and that was a little bit of a rough time. But by April, they had court dates because they every few months, like 3 months or 6 months, they do another court date. So we had to wait for the court date. So once they realized the parents or guardian or whoever is not going to complete their case plan, then the court changes the goal. The judge has to say the goal is no longer reunification. The goal is adoption. Sometimes they can change the goal to be reunification or adoption, and whatever possibility is better by the next court date, that'll be. But they ended up changing the goal to adoption. And so, but that's not the only, her rights have to be terminated. So she...
Ooh, wow.
So they have to, by courts, I don't know, I can't really explain the exact process of what boxes need to be checked off legally to terminate the rights, but she has options to complete the plan, and when the judge is like, you're not going to complete your plan, this isn't whatever, but she ended up just stopped showing up to court. She just didn't go anymore, and the judge, on whatever the termination date, just terminated her rights. And then the next court day that we did was our legal adoption day, which was in June. So we got our kids in the middle-ish of summer, and by...
This past summer, right?
No, this was a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And then by a year later, they were legally ours forever. So, but that is that's not regular. Normally, the child is in foster care for a long time, at least a year before the rights are terminated, and often a couple years, because they don't take lightly just taking parents away from their kids forever. So that's something they give them chance after chance after chance to fix that. And then sometimes that's hard on the child, but sometimes it's hard on the foster parent, because you see these children grow and thrive under your care, and then having that possibility for them to go back is really hard. But that's our story. It went a lot faster than it normally goes. Normally it's a very, very slow process. But, and again, they kind of knew it was going that way because they'd already been removed. So this was 3 years altogether that they had been in foster care. And that was over half of almost all of their lives.
Has he tried to make contact with them or no?
Has who?
The mother. Has he tried?
No, so I don't want to say lucky, but because everything was so supervised, we never really spoke to her directly. Like, we saw her in court, and I think she knew who we were, but she would, like, leave early or get there late, and I think she was a little intimidated or didn't want to talk to us, or... I mean, there's a lot of conflicting feelings. I think she told the caseworker one time that she was happy that her kids were going to be in a loving home. But I think a lot of parents, bio parents, think that the foster parents are part of the taking the kids away, and so they resent them. Which, of course, like, we have no control over any of the decisions or anything at all in the child's outcome. We're just there taking care of them while they have the need. But so she didn't have any of our contact information. We have, there's some kind of system, and I don't know exactly what website it is, but if you're adopted, if you reach out to this certain system, some kind of adoption, we have pamphlets for it when you're 18. If you reach out for it and the bio parent also submits their information, you can get matched. So if your bio parent wants to reach out and you want to reach out, you can get matched. So we still have the information, and they can decide that later. But as of post-adoption visits, anything kind of related to their past really just hurts them.
Yeah,
it brings up PTSD, all that pain again, and it's
better for them to make the decision as an adult, like where they actually could think about, like, okay, yeah, I want to actually meet my parents or my bio parents.
Yeah, and for how much, when she was court ordered to see her children, how often she let them down, I don't know if she would be better now. And I don't know anything about where she is or what she's doing. And my oldest daughter has told me that she sometimes has nightmares about running into them when we're out and about in St. Augustine or doing errands or places, because she doesn't want to see them. One of the family members she had to testify against in court for abuse, and that was really hard for her.
So she was doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's harder for the older ones because they remember more, and it took a while, because even though, like, a million people tell her it's not her fault, or a million people say, you know, it's okay, or people shouldn't treat you like that, like, it took us to really sit down with her and explain to her that sorry.
It's okay. Take your time.
You know, we had to show her that she's a hero.
Holy crap.
And that she saved the lives of not just her, but her brothers and sisters. Because one of them had actually, in a dangerous situation, had died and had to have CPR and was in a coma.
Wait, one of the children?
Yeah. And so who knows what would have happened if they were still there. And so once she stopped having the guilt of telling somebody that they were being hurt and realized that she had saved them, she kind of changed her mindset and is more proud. And that's, I think, a really big accomplishment for a child. Sorry.
No, like for my former career as a police officer, I've seen situations like that, and I had to take children away from homes. One of them that's probably the first time I did it, and it's always stood with me, was when we found out that these two twin boys was being raped by their older brother, and the mother knew about it. And it was one of the most difficult things. It's like, one, they're children.
Yeah.
Like, why would you let that happen to your child. And then too, then you see them confused and upset when we had to drive them to a stranger's house. They were friendly and nice, but it was still like there's a lot of mixed emotions. And just like you, there's a lot of mixed emotions when you have to take in children that are innocent. They did not deserve any of those circumstances or how the parents treat them.
And the conflicting emotions is true on so many levels, because one of our children experienced sexual abuse, and they were...
Sorry, just come a little bit closer. There we go.
And they were favored and spoiled in the way of buying toys or giving dessert by the person that was sexually abusing them. Ugh. So with that many children and that many house, there wasn't a lot of attention. So to be treated like that in an abusive manner, but then also to get the most attention of your other children, of your brothers and sisters, it's very hard and conflicting. They think that that's okay, like that's what love is, and it took a long time to explain that that's not how people should treat you, and we're never going to treat you like that, and you can, we'll do special things because you deserve it, not because we're hurting you.
Oh my God, what?
I mean, and like these are just, and this sounds crazy, but this isn't extreme. We do not have a crazy extreme story. If you ever want to go and just hear the stories, children's court is, I think, like every Tuesday or something. And you just go in at like 8 or 9 o'clock and you sit there. And if you're not crying by 3 p.m., like, I don't know. Because there's just story after story and case after case. And they're only in front of the judge like 10, 15 minutes. And so you just hear all these different situations. Sometimes it's just like the moms, their dad was murdered suddenly, and the mom didn't know how to cope. She lost her job and lost her situation and turned to drugs. So it's just a bad situation that she was in, and the kids just weren't able to be taken care of. And sometimes those end happily, and sometimes they don't. And there's like the abuse and the neglect of our children is actually excruciatingly common. And that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to talk to you, because I don't think that people really know that it's there or that it's out there. Because even people who have been in foster care or who are adopted don't always really talk about it. So our oldest daughter is by far the most aware, and she kind of understood adoption, and she was so excited because she had been in at least 12 foster homes over these years. And she was so excited to finally be somewhere where she wasn't going to be taken away from. And she told everybody at school she knew. She's like, I'm adopted. This is this. Like, my new name is going to be this. And she was just so proud of it. And children don't really understand that. And so one day she came home crying because children were chanting on the bus, "You're adopted. Nobody loves you," over and over. And so people don't know that, like, being adopted is not a bad thing, or she's more loved than most people. Like, we have a very incredibly huge family. And one of the best stories we have is one of our children's birthday was like 5 days after they were placed with us. So we're like, okay, well, let's see what we can do to make you feel special. And we kind of just like sent texts to people and said, hey, if you want to stop by, don't worry about bringing a gift. We're just going to have a small celebration with a little cupcakes or whatever. And like 15 family members showed up, all with gifts. And it was just so special to see people come together and supporting someone that they didn't even know. Because there's a lot of people who go and be foster parents, and they're like, why would you do that? Aren't those damaged children? Why would you take care of someone else's kids? Or they're just going to go back home anyways. But it's not easy. It's emotionally taxing. But it's definitely, I think, one of the most significant things you can do to change these lives, or even just make the world a better place in general. I was looking at some statistics earlier, And I'm like, there are so many people in foster care, but you don't think about it. According to the child welfare .org, there's almost 500,000 children in foster care on one specific day that they did a total of. So that doesn't include all the people that were in foster care before that day that were either adopted or reunified with their parents, or anybody that would have been removed later. That was just that one day in time. There was almost 500,000 people, or 500,000 children in foster care. And it's crazy because there's only 600,000 people that die of cancer a year. And that's one of the leading causes of death. And everyone knows somebody who had cancer and died. So if you think about those numbers being the same, and those are just the children that were in foster care at one time, that doesn't count the children that were in foster care years before or years after. So if you know someone that has died from cancer, you probably know someone that has been in the foster system.
I didn't know that was that big of a number.
Yeah, and unfortunately, some of those people aren't always successful. I mean, we adopted them, and we get to be together with them forever, and a lot of people go back home with their parents and then get removed later, and then go back home with their parents and then get removed later, or they have these feelings of not really sure where they belong, or they close themselves off from the homes that they're in because they think that it's going to be temporary, and it often is. So they kind of shut down. They kind of test the foster parents. We've had very incredible behavior issues that we've had to deal with, and then these children end up not getting adopted. And I think one of the statistics that I read is that over half of the homeless children, it's 60% of people who time out of foster care, according to the child welfare, become homeless. So when they're 18 years old, if the foster home can't keep them or doesn't keep them, or the child wants to leave, they often become homeless. And I believe it's 7 out of 10 young ladies who end up having children themselves before they turn 20 or something. So, and then the cycle just gets repeated because these young ladies aren't set up for success because they haven't been loved and taken care of. They don't know how to love and take care of, and then it just starts all over. So I'm really proud of what we've accomplished and of all the degrees and things that we have or things that we've done. I don't think I could do anything that mattered more than taking these children and adopting them and knowing that they survived the most horrible things most people would ever even imagine, and that the people that they're going to become are going to be incredible, and they're going to be strong, and they are also going to be a part of the solution. And how many people are they going to help? So if we can take part or even just be a mentor, a lot of these children that are older, teenagers in foster care, because some people aren't removed until they're 14, they need someone to help them have life skills. There are mentorship programs that teach them how to create a resume, or what your credit score is, or what's important in job outlook. I think, 1% of people that time out of foster care actually go to college or get a degree, even though they get degrees free. I'm looking at the statistics right in front of me, and it's just...
Why don't you tell us where the statistics tongue-tied. Statistics are coming from?
So, one side is the National Foster Youth Institute, and it says 7 out of 10 girls who age out of the foster care system will become pregnant before the age of 21. It says... After reaching the age of 18, 20% of the children who are in foster care will become instantly homeless. Not even a chance, they just become homeless. Only half of foster children who age out of the system will actually have some form of gainful employment by the age of 24. So these people that are in the foster care system don't get permanent homes. I think that they need the most help. And for our situation, because we have 5 children, according to the foster 5 is the max you can have in your house, no matter how big it is, which is good because 5 children is a lot, and we're certainly not bored in any means ever. But I think maybe when our children are older, we'll probably try to get more involved in mentoring some of those children. And some of them grow up to accomplish great things, but they need that at least one person in their life to lean on, or one person in their life to inspire them, or one person in their life to tell them that they're worth it, or that they can, or that they deserve good things. Because years of homes and years of different placements and years of abuse, and some foster homes aren't better than their homes that they were removed from. And I can't even imagine having a self-esteem after that, or a desire to do more, you know. I don't know if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So a lot of these children kind of just stay forever in the physiological needs of food, water, and they never even get the safety needs.
The lower part of pyramid.
So for them to have a feeling of belongingness, or any kind of a self-esteem, or self-actualization, it's just, it doesn't happen. Like, if you never get your safety, you'll never move up to become your full potential. But I know that our children will grow up to be great. And we went from having behavior issues, of course, because they're confused, they're angry, they're sad, they feel rejected, among so many things. We went from having phone calls from the principal once a week for one of our kids, like running down the hall or not, whatever, or climbing under their desk, to we have teachers specifically requesting our children. They're like, oh, do you have a child in 5th grade? I really want them. And that's really special, I think, to us, too, to know that these people know how special our children are and just want to be a part of their lives.
Do you still do foster, or are you just solely...
So once we have 5 children, we cannot have any more in our house. So we did not renew our license because we can't have any more than 5.
Okay.
And it would be hard. I mean, just I don't know if we would anyways. We kind of are just focusing on our children. But yeah, once you have 5 children, that's it.
Wow. Can you give us an example of a difficult situation you have with one of the children, and how do you handle it?
Yeah, I can give you 100.
Okay.
So there are times when, well, one, like, their immune system's terrible, so they were always sick. I don't think that they had seen a vegetable in their life because I know one of the children would have to steal food from the closet or whatever in the middle of the night, and they would just literally break open a bag of sugar and eat it, and that's what they had. So for us to try to get them bigger and healthier, we had to get really creative, and we would put vegetables in a blender and secretly mix it with marinara sauce to give them nutrition. So children that have been abused, I don't want to compare them to dogs, but you know how a dog can be skittish for life, if something happens. So our children, if they didn't want to do something, or the teacher was trying to tell them to do something, you can't touch them if there's an emotional situation. So for the teacher to grab them by the arm and try to pull them into line or something, they would just shut down or melt down or go crazy, because all that stuff kind of comes back. So we had to be creative with discipline and structure, because you can't pick up a kid and put him in timeout or anything like that. You can't even, because they were locked in that room so long, even sending them to their room was too traumatizing, because if they were in a closed door, they would be worried that it would lock, or then they would pee their pants if they were in the door because they would be afraid that they were never going to be let out or something. So we did things if they were fighting over a toy, and I say fighting, you think of normal kids fighting, but it was truly screaming, it was almost they were fighting for the last thing to eat in the house, because they just only had that survival, I don't have anything, so I have to take it kind of mindset. And so instead of putting them in timeout or putting them in the room, we would have a timeout box, and so the toy would be in timeout. Be like, okay, if you can't handle this, then the toy goes in the timeout toy box. And then they would have to have good behavior to earn that toy back. Or I know one time our oldest child would not understand if we stayed calm because everything was so crazy and intense where she was from that if we're like, okay, let us know when you're ready to talk like a big girl, she would just escalate and escalate and escalate to the point where she would try to like run away because she needed us to say, oh no, don't go. It's because she needed that incredible drama. And even though it was just something small about homework, like we had days where we were driving around the neighborhood while she was walking down people's backyards trying to, just be, out of control. And I think at the beginning, when they first come to any new home, they're worried what we're going to do. Are we going to hurt them? Are we going to anything? So they kind of have those defenses up. But then after a certain point, they realize that we're never going to hurt them. And then they're like, well, if you're not going to hurt me, what are you going to do? And so then you go through like a whole nother phase of defiance. And then again, because they're so far behind in education, they're so far behind in nutrition, we had to come up with creative things. So instead of, sometimes for discipline, we have them write like spelling words or sight words, like as sentences, just to give them the handwriting skills and the spelling skills to try to catch them up. Let's see. We've had things broken, a couple things in our house,
See some writing on the wall, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's just typical toddler stuff, yeah. But we have a hole in our wall over there from someone's, I think actually it was an accident with a stool. But yeah, we used to have a glass table, and one of the children would like pull up on the table, and it ended up falling down and breaking. Or and they just didn't really know how to play either, and we didn't really know what they didn't know. So one of our children had her own bathroom, and like one day we walked in, and like all these little like plastic things from the cabinets were ripped off, the back of the toilet was broken, like the towel rack was ripped down from the wall. And it wasn't that she was doing it out of a fit of rage, she just like was trying to do pull-ups on this bar and didn't know that it wouldn't hold her weight. And they have like this nervousness about them, so they would like pick their fingers until they bleed. And the anxiety has kind of gotten better, but they don't go through the normal phases of, being raised as a child. So do you have children?
No.
But I mean, even like as a young child at age 3, you have already developed all of these skills to interact with people. And if they don't have those skills, it takes a very long time.
Yeah.
And everything was screaming, probably. Like most of their communication was, whether it was excited or scared or mad, it was a lot of screaming. And so at some point, I had convinced them that I couldn't hear them unless they talked in a regular voice. And I think they actually believed me, because one of the girls would say, shh, she can't hear you if you're screaming. And so they genuinely didn't think that I could hear them if they were yelling at me. So,
oh my God.
That was, yeah. But I mean, you just got to be persistent with it and try new things and show them that you're going to be there. Like even after the trying to run away thing, you still say, I love you and I'm here. Like you can't lose me. Like you're not, like I'm not going to quit you. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a moment for her where she realized that this was it. Or one of the hard times that we had was when the first vacation we went on, one of our children was really acting up and starting to kind of act like when we first got them, like really crazy and defiant and temper tantrums. And we have these feeling sessions because the kids don't really know what's wrong. They can't a lot of adults can't name their feelings, so kids especially can't. And we found out later that he was afraid on vacation. And we're like, buddy, why were you afraid? And he said that he was afraid that he wasn't going to come back to our house. Oh, and so he was having such a hard time on vacation. We're like, what do you, like, we went to the arcade, we did all these fun things. And we're like, I don't understand why you're doing it. But he was genuinely afraid that he wasn't going to come back to our house. I remember one of the times we're like, hey, we're going to go to the zoo. And one of the kids is like, I don't want to go to the zoo. I'm like, why don't you want to go to the zoo? And they're like, I want to stay at your house. So for the first while, they were always afraid to taken away. Or if they left, they wouldn't come back. Especially the one that was dropped off at daycare and then just never saw that foster mom again, you know? And it just, a lot of those things just take time. It's been a couple years now, and kids are rough in general. Mm-hmm. So they're just kind of like regular kid problems, but there's still a little residual heartache that goes on. Every now and then we'll watch a movie, just some random kid movie, like something with puppies at Christmas. I don't know what it was called, but there was a part where children were being hurt in an orphanage or under the stairs or hiding from the bad guy. And one of my kids just burst out in tears and couldn't stop crying because it reminded them of when their grandmother had hurt them and locked them in their room. And it doesn't take much for all that stuff to come back. So we still kind of deal with that, but it's getting less and it's getting better. And I think they know that that stuff's in the past and not going to come back. And I don't know. I mean, I think they'll have their happy ending.
I mean, it's not like just talking to you and me and your husband earlier. Seems like they're in the best situation possible for them, and yeah, it's like you. No, I didn't realize how difficult it was on both the parents' part and the foster parents' part and the children's part.
You know, and another difficulty that foster parents have is that, and don't get me wrong, it's worth it. Mm-hmm. I don't want to talk anybody out of not trying to help, is that we get these children within so many days. I don't know if it's 7 days, but within so many days, we have to get them to see a doctor. We have to...
Is that paid for by the system?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. The medical stuff is paid for by the system, and they help with daycare and stuff like that. But we have to get these things done. So, like, they have to... And some children, if you get WIC or some kind of help with food, bridge card, I don't know. Mm-hmm. You have to take them to a doctor's appointment every month. And there's all of these... especially with having how many brothers and sisters we had all at once, all of these appointments, taking them here, caseworkers here, and then the caseworker comes every now and then, so you have to make sure that you're home at certain times so they can come and check in. And this might seem a little dark and creepy, but every so often, or I don't know how often he had to do it, but he would have to come and take pictures of our kids just to show that our children were still living in our house. And I think at some point, like, if a child runs away, then the foster parent doesn't say something to still get that check. I don't know what the situation is or what happened, but he would literally have to come and take pictures.
Yeah, there's definitely are people who take advantage of that.
Yeah, and one person I need to talk about more than anything is someone called a guardian ad litem. So this is someone that also comes to our house to kind of see how the kids are doing. But she just doesn't just like come and like make sure like there's food in the fridge and the kids are physically here. She comes, or he, she's completely a volunteer. Like all this is just because she wants to. And she would come and get to know the kids. She would come and play games with us. She would meet us at the park. She would just like... We'd come over for lunch and see how the kids were truly interacting with us and how they were in our home, because she's the one who represents the kids. So the case manager person takes care of this case, the situation. They make sure the parent has a lawyer, everyone knows what dates they go to court. Like they're the ones that remove the children, call the foster homes to have them placed. We have this thing... We had a red folder where it gives us our names and the fact that we can take these children to the doctor or we're able to register them for school. And it's just like some legal things that we're like legally able to make decisions for them, even though we can't make actual decisions for them. Like if they needed surgery or something, they'd have to find their bio parents to sign for that. And that's way more complicated. But the guardian ad litem is the one that only represents the children. So she also visits their bio parents, and she goes to the visits when the kids go with the bio parents and see their interaction. And there's a lot that goes into effect when the judge makes their decision, but the guardian ad litem definitely is listened to, I would say, the most, because she or he knows where the kids are happiest, because the children are their only agenda. But between appointments and everything, it's not easy. It's not a hobby. It's not something you do on the side. It's taking in children and raising them. Taking in children and raising them as if they were your own until you have no idea when. Because there are days, one of my friends, their mom was completing their case plan and they had bunk beds, and she came and showed them where their rooms are going to be, and they were going to go back home, and they were so excited. And then the next time someone saw her, she's like, actually I'm good, and she just gave up her rights. And like it's hard on the foster parents, because then we have to pick up these pieces of these broken hearts.
I know this is probably going to sound crazy, but from my experiences, I'm actually in that mindset, or that kind of like that view set. I think some people should. I think there should be a license to have kids. So, like, there's some people. I mean, there's some people you look at, it's like, no, you should not be. You can't even take care of yourself. But then you get situations like this, like where you get good people like yourself and your husband taking in someone else's kids and making sure they have a home and they're fed and they're shown love, and especially love. Like, kids need love. But I don't know, it kind of sickens me. Like, this system shouldn't be in place, or it shouldn't exist if parents did their jobs.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's so important to do the things that my husband and I have done, to be a part of the solution, because these kids that are in these bad situations don't get out of them without help. Mm-hmm. So the more people that help them, the less the cycle will repeat.
Yeah.
And so we all are in charge of, it's our responsibility to make our society better. And there are many ways to do it, but I think this is definitely an important one.
Yeah, it takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, like, yeah, I'm kind of just taken back by this whole conversation, because I knew the difficulties of it, but I didn't really appreciate it, like what the parents go through and what the kids go through. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of friends. One comes to mind. She was adopted, but she was only adopted when she was a baby, so she didn't really know her parents, and she's not interested in actually finding them. Her foster or her adopted parents are her parents, and she's a very well-adjusted woman too. So,
good.
Yeah, she's doing pretty good things for her life. One of the most mature women I've ever known.
And sometimes it takes going through a trial to realize your strength. Mm-hmm. And although I wish no one would have to experience what my children or many children have experienced, the incredible, powerful adults that they will become it's going to be amazing. I'm so excited to see.
Yeah, I like how you said, like, you gotta you said this earlier, that you have to remind the kids that they're heroes. Or no, you were talking about the family member that testified. But sometimes you gotta remind the kids too that they're heroes too.
Oh yeah.
Like, they were given a situation that wasn't their fault, that they didn't ask for, and yeah, they're making mistakes because they don't know any better. But they're still handling it. They still are given the responsibility to take charge of it. And you gotta remind them, like, hey, you are a hero for going through this. And something better is gonna come out. Maybe not, you're not gonna see it now, but you're gonna appreciate this when you're older.
Yeah, and even now, I think that they are learning to be sympathetic and understand others, because they know we teach the concept. There's a book called How Full Is Your Bucket? And basically, if something bad happens, everyone has this metaphorical bucket on their head. And if something bad happens, you stub your toe, you spill your cereal, whatever, a little bit of water falls out of this bucket. And then, but if only bad things happen, your bucket's empty, you're short-tempered, you're mad, you end up emptying other people's buckets. And so the point in the story is to, like, fill other people's buckets, because when everyone's bucket's full, we're happy and treating others with respect. So but we have to teach them that. So we teach them how to give compliments, or we teach them that if someone's being mean to them at school, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad guy, that they might be going through something, and that you have to confront them and say, you know, when you do this, it hurts my feelings. Because most people don't actually want to hurt people. They just are caught up in kids being kids and whatever.
Yeah.
Or, you know, saying, like, going to your teacher, like, you know, I have this problem. Is there something that we can do? And then they realize that these situations that they're in can be solved by talking it out or working it out. And so I think that they're becoming leaders among their peers because we work so hard. And not that children who are loved are all entitled, but there are times where I'm like, I don't know if I want that person over. They're kind of bad influence because they're just greedy and selfish and disrespect their mom. Like, but yeah, but they're already heroes and they already know. And at dinner time, we take turns and we give each other compliments.
Oh, wow.
Because we want to teach them how to show kindness to others. And giving someone a compliment is just the easiest way to put a smile on someone's face.
Yes.
And we also learn to appreciate each other in the family. And they love it. They get so excited. Like sometimes if it's like a compliment night, they'll eat fast so they can give compliments first. And the other skill that we try to teach them is gratitude. I know I was telling you I read a lot of books. I read a lot of parenting books too. And one of the things it talks about is how gratitude is not necessarily an instinct. That's not one of the things that are just inside of you that has to be taught and practiced, like you practice your multiplication skills. So we teach them to be grateful for things. Like even if you all in all have a bad day at school, there's still something to be grateful for. Yes. And I think already just setting the tone for that, they are incredible people, even at their age.
How old are they?
I don't really want to go into specifics about ages. I just...
Below 15, basically?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it like that. Before we go into the question part of the interview, do you have any advice that you would give anyone that's a foster parent or even a person that was a foster child when they were kids?
I think for someone who was a foster child that's having a hard time, I think reaching out and doing anything you can to talk about it in counseling will help. I know that there's always going to be conflicting feelings, especially if someone timed out of foster care, not really feeling loved or deserved to be loved. But no matter what their past or their situation is, that, yeah, they deserve it. Yeah, they can do it. And it's okay to ask for help because there are systems that they can find because they do get to go to college for free. If they time out of the system. Yeah. And they can get help with job placement. But sometimes just asking for help is the first step because you do deserve help. And you do deserve, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. You weren't set up for success. And if you're not set up for success, you need tools to get there. Anyone that wants to be a foster parent but doesn't think that they can dedicate it full time, there's something called respite care. And that's basically short-term fostering or babysitting. So once you're a foster parent, you can't just let anyone watch these children. Like these children are like part of the state. And so anyone that babysits has to be vetted and approved. So we had to have all of our family members get, fingerprinted and background checked and to be able to be approved to watch our children, even just for 2 hours. And so if you want to just be a respite care person, you can be that person that just helps take kids for a couple hours or even a weekend. So let's say you're foster parents and you have a death in the family out of state. It's not necessarily realistic for you to fly 5 kids out of state to go to a funeral for someone they've never met. So respite care would be for something that can take a child for like 3 days while you're gone on that situation. Or fostering is hard. So sometimes they just need a break and just need a couple days to just like clean their house or sit outside in the sun. I don't know. And respite care can help that. And I think foster parents, you just have to keep from getting burnt out. Because even if you've seen this case time and time again, it's still that child's first experience. Or, we are a good collective group. So there's these foster groups on Facebook and stuff that kind of offer support. And, hey, I just got a 6-month-old. Does anyone have clothes? And then they'll drive over clothes. There's also something called Foster Closet that if you're a foster parent and they don't give you nearly enough money that you need to buy like outfits for the children. It's like this goodwill, so people like us donate our gently used clothes or new things, new socks, new underwear, shoes, whatever we can find, backpacks. And you take your red folder or whatever piece of paper that you have to show that you're this children's foster parent. You call them, give them a list of ages and sizes, and they will have boxes and bags of clothes and supplies ready for you. And that was one of the first things that saved us, is because we had set up our house for only a couple kids, and they wanted us to take all these kids, and they actually helped give us a twin bed, and they helped give us backpacks, and they helped give us shoes, and we had no toys, and they made sure that each of our kids had like 3 toys to play with. So that was really special. So you just have to reach out and either help somebody or ask for help, because that's what we are. We're people. Yeah. We should be here for each other.
Yeah, we only have each other. We only have each our neighbors. And we kind of starting to forget that in today's world.
I think too, when you become a foster parent, there's a lot of people that kind of look at you like, ew. You know, they're like, what are you? You must be crazy, or why are you doing this? And there's like this negative stigma, like, oh, I'm going to stay away from her. Oh, she's a foster mom. Like, you don't even want to like. But if you know someone that's a foster mom, like, or dad, and they can do it as single parents. Like, you don't have to be a married couple with no kids. You can have a kid and be a single mom and be a foster parent for another child. Like, you don't have to have like an empty house and a perfect situation. You can help in most situations. But if you know someone that's a foster parent, just offer to help with anything. Anything. I can't tell you how many times I called my husband and I told him that kids' socks are my arch nemesis. And I would almost be moved to tears trying to fold all these socks, because they're all just slightly different sizes. And kids' socks, they're not.
Yeah, they're different.
Yeah, and they're not all white. They're all different colors with different shapes. And one was black with red stars, and one was red with blue stars. And like, just even the little things, like coming over, having a cup of coffee with a friend of yours that's a foster mom, and fold clothes while you watch some daytime talk show. Like, anything. Or don't shy away from children who are in foster care. Understand that they've gone through worse things than you can imagine, and just offer a hug or a high five or say you can do it or you look nice. Anything.
Just the little things.
The little things make the most difference. Like, I know that sometimes it takes me, I have to acknowledge how many times I say, don't do that, put your shoes away, what are you doing, time for homework, compared to how many times I say, good job, or you look nice today, or wow, you're really getting good at math, or some, like, we need to make sure that we balance the positive things over the negative things, because if all you hear is negative with occasionally like, oh, sarcastic, finally you brushed your teeth, then that takes a toll too. It's the little things that build our lives.
All right. Before we start doing the questions, I'm going to ask if I could use a bathroom. I'm going to pause the recording for a moment. I drank some water when I came here, and it came through me pretty fast.
Okay. You're allowed.
Okay. Okay. We're back from the quick break. Now, for all the new listeners, this is the question part of the interview. The reason why I ask these questions is because I have various types of people on the show, come with different viewpoints, different lifestyles, and you're probably not going to agree with that. You're not going to agree with their lifestyles or their viewpoints, but these questions show a different part of that person, their interpersonal self. Basically the self that you will only show your husband, your best friend, your parents, not the ones you really see in a social setting. The reason why I ask these questions is because despite if you disagree with them, you can still relate with them on a different level. So these questions are supposed to show that we all share something in common, and you just need to find that common place, then work from there. So we'll get started with the questions. The first one is, given the choice of anyone in the world from any time period, who would you want as a dinner guest and why?
Oh man, that's a really hard question to answer.
Well, get ready, because there's other hard ones. Well, I know why I never like showing these people questions beforehand, because they're supposed to be spontaneous, not really planned out. And there's no wrong answer unless you say Hitler.
Oh, yeah. Unless it was just to kill him again. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not advocate for murder. Honestly, I would have to say, like, Gandhi or Mother Teresa, because as much as I'd like to say the things that I do and the job that I have are to help other people, to truly dedicate your life to just being servants of others, I think is incredible. And that would just really be an honor to meet someone like that.
Yeah, especially them. Yeah, they chose poverty.
Yeah, exactly.
To help other people. So yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good answer. Actually, that's the first time I heard Gandhi and Mother Teresa. Nobody's have said them yet on the show. What would constitute a perfect day for you?
A perfect day?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a hard one. I have a lot of passions and hobbies. Let's see. Okay. A perfect day. I wake up early, way before the sun. So I would wake up at like 4:35, do a nice little workout, take a shower, have my coffee, get my camera, and go to the beach and take some nice sunrise pictures. Come back. Of course, my kids would be off school. Make a nice family breakfast. Maybe chocolate chip pancakes. We take turns doing kid cook of the day. Yeah, we even like drizzle melted peanut butter over them.
Oh my god.
And then we would spend the morning gardening together. I love gardening. We have a butterfly garden out there, and the kids love finding the chrysalis and the caterpillars, and they enjoy that. We like growing our own vegetables and like picking the tomatoes together. I would say, I mean, it'd be nice to like go out to eat for lunch and then just play outside. My husband is so good with our kids with sports and all those things that they are genuinely athletically elite. Like my 5-year-old can throw a ball better than most 10-year-olds, and maybe have people over for dinner. We have a lot of neighbors and friends, and then tuck the kids in bed early and go on a nice date night with my husband and not come back until after midnight, which would probably take some afternoon coffee.
we gotta keep going. It was a nice little day, though. Especially the chocolate chip pancake one.
Yeah, I got started off right.
I think I'm gonna get some pancakes on the way back home. I haven't had chocolate chip pancakes in a long time. Alright, this is a serious one. Do you have a secret hunch on the way you will die?
I don't. I'm very passionate about nutrition and lifestyle, so I'm hoping I'll have a little bit of longevity. But I do have a lot of fears. I'm an ICU nurse.
Yeah, of course.
And I can guarantee that my husband knows that I do not want to be on a ventilator or a feeding tube or
oh my God,
any kind of torturous life support. And I've threatened him that I will haunt him if he doesn't know when it's time to say goodbye. So I hope that I'm in my 90s surrounded by my children and grandchildren and in hospice. That's my plan A. And then if plan B happens, I hope that my family knows how to say goodbye and move on.
Yeah, not a lot of people actually think about their mortality, and especially the way you said it too. That if they are to be put on life support for an extended amount of time, do they want to actually live like that, or do they want to just end it? And that's a really just tough conversation to have.
I encourage people to talk about. I don't know if it's through hospice, but there's something called 5 wishes. If you Google 5 wishes, it will come up and answer all those questions in your mind and talk about it with your spouse and all of your children. Because as an ICU nurse, one of the most difficult things is knowing that we're either doing things that the patient wouldn't want because the children can't handle it, or some children want this, some children want this, but they don't know what their loved one would want. And to have that clear, and I'll have you on a ventilator for as long as you want, but as long as I know that that's what you want. You know, to have those conversations called 5 wishes.
5 wishes.
Talk about it with your family.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most difficult conversations you could ever have.
Yes.
ugh. Hopefully, most of us will not have to go through that. But then, just some people that are listening right now, I guess our hearts go out to you because that's probably the most difficult situation in life, going through something like that. All right, we'll do something a little more fun. What conspiracy theories do you believe in? And it could be wild ones or crazy ones, fun ones.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, from listening to my husband, I feel like there's a lot of conspiracy theories in the ranking of sports teams.
Yeah. I do believe that's true to a certain extent.
I think that there is. I think there's a lot of misconceptions as far as like healthcare goes. And I don't know if there's conspiracy. Like some people think that doctors are just in it to charge patients more money, but I think sometimes it's just our American culture that wants us to do certain things because that's the next step in the process of care. But I do believe that there's a lot of things that I don't know about that happen in our government, and I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I have a lot going on in my personal life, in my work life. I don't really dwell a lot on that stuff.
It's probably a sign of a healthy person that you don't dwell on it.
I don't, yeah. If it's not in my circle of influence, it's not worth stressing.
Okay. Here's another fun one. If you wake up tomorrow and gain any power or ability, what would it be and why?
This I've thought about. Having children, we've talked about superpowers many times. I need to be a speedster, like the Flash.
I like how you use the actual word for it, speedster.
Oh, yeah. We know all about superheroes. And the things, I have a lot of goals, plans, ambitions, a lot of tasks on my to-do list every day. And if I could just fold that laundry a little bit faster and get to the store, and then I would have more time for the amazing small moments.
You're the first person that said speed. You're the first. Some people said flying. That's kind of like the common one.
That would be fun.
Yeah, predicting the future. But my friend, the first time I asked the question, his was actually a really good one. He said, like, whatever I say comes true. I'm like, ooh, that's actually powerful, but...
That would take a lot of self-control, because I'm pretty sure I've said things that I'm like, ooh, that should have been an inside thought.
So I'm pretty sure, like, there's, like, you have to actually mean it when you say it. Yeah. But, like, if you're just having a conversation... Well, I always love that question. Here's a good one. When was the first time you fell in love, and how did that happen?
I don't know if I've truly been in real love until I met my husband.
Really?
And, I mean, you have, like, the motions and, like, the high school sweetheartness, and I was kind of young. I was 21, and I remember I had started a job as a waitress, and he was a manager, and he opened the door for me, and we both kind of paused. I had a little stomach flip going on, and I was like, oh, this job's going to be interesting. He's kind of cute, and I think that's about as close as love at first sight as it could get. We didn't, like, start dating that day, but I as I get older, I genuinely believe in meant to be, and I think that my husband and I were meant to be. I think that our children were meant to be our children, and I go with the flow a lot and just appreciate what's in front of me, and I think that the love that I have with my husband is nothing I've ever experienced before.
I think that's a great thing too. Like, I'm pretty sure if you're married to someone, you gotta make sure, like, okay, I never felt this before, and it's long standing.
Yeah.
How long did it take to you guys date when you first met?
Well, it was a little scandalous because, again, he was a manager and I was a waitress, and a lot of people would go out after work for cocktails, and I was still in training. And it was his brother's birthday, so I got off early because I didn't have any side work. People in restaurants know what side work is. And so he and I went with his brother at the bar while we're waiting for everyone else to get off before we went to the pool hall that we were going to go to. And His brother I thought was kind of annoying at the time, so I just kind of like focused on Brian, and I think he thought that I had a crush on him because I just kind of blocked his brother out, and then I went home because my house was right next to the pool hall that we were going to, and I changed into regular clothes. So I was like one of the only people not in like restaurant stinky clothes, and Brian's convinced that I initiated it because I was just so beautiful.
That's the excuse.
Yes, and then I seduced him because I was
the way you looked.
Yeah. And then, but he also made sure, because we were drinking pitchers of beer, he also made sure my glass never got more than like 2 sips empty. Like it was full to the top every time. And then at some point, we were kind of flirty, and at some point he grabbed me by the hand and took me over to the other side of the bar that was closed. There was like this, literally like this fish tank that had a shark in it, and pulled me on the other side, and I'm like, oh my god, he's gonna get me in trouble, like, you can't flirt with me, I'm your boss, whatever. And then he just kissed me, and it was a very passionate moment, and then we were dating ever since, like that.
Wow.
And eventually, but he's one of those guys that does the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And he said, I really like you, and I don't want to tell you what to do, but if we do date, you can't work for me because it's against policy, whatever. So after that first kiss, I ended up not going back to my job, and and I respected him more for that.
Yeah.
And
hey, good job. Good job. That's a pretty bold move.
And yeah, he's just one of those good guys. Do the right thing to do because it's the right thing to do, and that he kind of pushed me to be a better person, to recognize that there are people out there exist. Because when I met him, I was like, men are pigs. There's whatever. And
but it takes that one
I found
guy,
that good guy at that right time, and yeah, happily ever after. 13 years later.
Wow.
Oh crap! Now someone can do the math and see how old I am.
Don't worry, you look really young. Just to let you guys know, her husband is in the other room. He's listening, so that's why I yelled like "good job." Yeah, that's a great story. I really love that one. All right, something a little bit more serious. What was the most terrifying moment in your life?
I've had a few scary moments, but I remember shortly after we moved down to Florida from Michigan, I was driving in the rain, and you have the dry season and whatever season, and it was shortly after the dry season, and I didn't really understand how slick the roads could get in the rain. And so I had tried to stop at a red light, and it wouldn't let me stop, and my car was spinning sideways, and I was sliding sideways toward a pole. And I'm already almost going to get choked up. And this was years ago. And I had this moment that I'm like, oh my God, this is it. Like, I'm going to die. And I, of course, thought of my husband, and I thought of everyone I loved. And then I had like this small moment of panic that I was going to be like paralyzed in a hospital. And of course, this is only over like 2 seconds or whatever. And eventually I got control of the car and just kind of like bumped up over the curb. But I was still like in oncoming traffic, and it was really frightening. And but I was able to like drive around and get back onto the right side of the road. And
was this in Florida?
Yeah, this was in Florida. So like I didn't know how slick the roads were. Like you drive in snow, snow is slippery, but I didn't know like
how actually ride it.
Probably been safer for me to like go through the orange light as opposed to try to stop quickly for the red light. And I went home, and I was like clearly distraught. And Brian's like, "Are you okay?" And I said I had this moment, and I was just almost started crying. I'm like, I can't imagine life without you. I wasn't ready to go yet, and I'm so grateful that I'm safe, and I love you. And he actually looked at me and almost started crying because he's like, I can't imagine losing you. And we just had like this moment of just like, we're so grateful, because in that moment our whole lives could have been thrown upside down, and we just like didn't want to be too arrogant about it, like, oh, we're fine, but like definitely appreciating the moment, how anytime things could change. And I genuinely thought I was going to die.
Wow. Something similar happened to me. I was born in New York, and my family moved me and my brother down here when I was 11. So I was in the moving truck with my father, and my mom and my brother were in the the car driving behind us. And same thing. As soon as we got to Florida, it was raining pretty badly. There was a couple of accidents. And my dad started slowing down in the moving truck. But this woman just weren't without looking. Like, she didn't put her signals on. She just went to the next lane suddenly. And my dad had to, like, jerk the truck into the emergency lane. But then there was an actual accident in that emergency lane. So he had to take it into the woods. So the truck flipped over.
Oh, my goodness.
Thankfully, nothing bad happened physically. We were all okay. But, yeah, it's dangerous driving in Florida, especially when you come to a different state.
Yeah. Or
coming from a different state. It's, it takes time getting used to.
Yeah, I'm much more cautious in the rain now. Like, especially after I know it hasn't rained a while and all those oils are being mixed up. Absolutely.
Oh, here's a fun one. And I just started recently asking this question. What's the largest animal you think you could fight and win?
Ooh, it depends. Because I'm pretty sure if anything was attacking my children, I would be one of those stories of get superpowers and just like rip off the face of whatever was getting there.
The adrenaline kicks in.
Yeah, like my kids know that I'm here to protect them and love them, but they know like mommy's capable of, some badass moments. And I think that if anything were to happen, I don't know. I feel like I would at least stab him in the eye or something. I don't know if I could pick one. I want to think if the time came, I'd be a little invincible.
Okay. You get the superpowers. All right. Have you ever had a spiritual or profound experience?
Well, other than that, almost dying near miss accident, I think I had. I don't really know if it would be spiritual, but there was a time when all this political craziness was going on, and they're like, North Korea's gonna bomb us, and just craziness after craziness, and I already have enough crazy in my life. I don't need the whole world to be crazy. So I was just distraught, and what is our world coming to? And I remember I was at home, and I literally and this was after we'd adopted our children. This was within the last year or so. I remember dropping to my knees and having this moment where I decided that I wasn't going to roll my eyes at it. I wasn't going to just complain about it. And that it only takes one person to make one thing addictive or trendy or anything to set a cycle of change. And so I actually have a couple 5-year plans to try to not just change the lives of a couple, but to set forth a new standard of the way we treat people. One of my ideas was to literally after that moment, I'm like, how can I change the world? So one of my ideas was to create a culture where we all volunteered. Mm-hmm. So in nursing school, we have to volunteer for this. And a lot of times people in high school volunteer to get something good on their resume. But I was thinking, what if starting in high school, every child was taught how to volunteer and to contribute to others just as a part of a norm? Mm-hmm. And what if every college university in the United States required certain volunteer hours to graduate or complete classes? And I feel like if you started to see the other side or someone else, or even my sister just started volunteering at a dog shelter, and that fulfillment that it gives her and that joy, even 2 Saturdays a month, is just unmeasurable. She's just, it's part of her happiness is giving to others. And if we could start that culture young and almost have it be I went on this date with this guy and he doesn't even have this Kandise Cares site where he volunteers. I'm not going to, almost you have to, or peer pressure churches is my other thing too. Mm-hmm. Those are my 3 things: high school, college, and churches. Mm-hmm. To almost just have a culture where people gave and we talked about it. Oh yeah, I was at this place, and or just volunteering with children, or having one of my other ideas was to have people volunteer regularly for after-school programs for kids. Like, they're there, but there aren't that many adults. And if every child had someone to read with for 20 minutes a day, like, we could increase the success of our educational system. Children just need that extra help with reading. And so having the desperation and hopelessness of potentially a nuclear war kind of made me call myself out and say, well, you can do this. Like, you're a powerful person. Let's do it, see what we can do.
Because I know you mentioned earlier that you started listening more to podcasts about finance. I strongly suggest this podcast called Freakonomics.
Okay.
So basically, it's about behavioral economics, macro and the micro, and it's a really great podcast. But they talked about how you change a society, and they were talking actually about the president. It's like, it's not really the president that changes society. It's usually it's the governors and the mayors, because they're more closer to their people, and their change is a little bit more impactful. But then they went even further, saying that if you want to change the world for the better, start small. Start within your community. Do recycle, like you said. Like there's little things you could do.
Yeah.
Like, you think it doesn't make a difference, but if one person does it and you get 3 other people to do it, in the long run, it does make a difference. So while you're talking about that, that's what made me think about it. Listen to that podcast, but it's usually the small changes
Absolutely.
you could do within your community actually does make an impact later down the road.
Absolutely. Our children are so aware of changes in our environment that if I'm in a safe place, like in our sub, we will pull over and pick up garbage because they're like, oh, Mom, there's garbage, we gotta get it. Or we try not to use plastic bags in their lunches, or we don't ever use paper plates at home. Like, we try to be aware of the need of the little things we can do. And if everyone did little things every day, what would happen?
Yeah, so the small things that really do make a big difference, because they actually do add up in the end. All right. If money wasn't a concern and other opinions of you didn't matter nor affected you, what would you want to do? What would be your wildest dream?
Okay, I have a really good one for this because the lottery's been so big. We've been thinking about stuff like this. So if I had unlimited funds,
The lottery.
I would, right?
Yeah.
Like, what would you do? Okay, if I had unlimited funds, I would buy up as much land as I could, and I would make organic gardens in different communities. I would hire people who timed out of the foster kid systems, someone with Down syndrome or autism, people who would otherwise not be successful, to farm these, because 1, gardening is just fun and fulfilling.
Healthy.
2, I'm giving jobs to people who might not otherwise be successful in society. And 3, with all this food that we're creating, with all this unlimited money I have, we could literally just give schools fruits and vegetables instead of those pizza packs that they get, or just, I feel like if people had healthy options for affordable rate, maybe more people would do that. And then, I mean, that could just spiral diabetes and all these other things. And if I had unlimited money, I would grow vegetables and hire people who would struggle in other jobs to do it.
It's like, that's a selfless dream.
I'm genuinely excited about this, because I've even looked at land to see if I could buy a small plot in St. Augustine and just start it, but I don't have money for that.
Small plot. It's actually a good plan too, and yeah, everyone does not. We always need vegetables.
Yeah, vegetables, fruit, even just you can't. Nutrition is a whole nother interview. Rants about it.
Well, we'll touch on this just for a moment, but for the past year, I got off of it until the past couple of weeks ago when I started doing it again. I started making my own vegetable smoothies. Where I take, it's actually very nutrient dense. I'm hoping it is, but it's kale, spinach, strawberries, blueberries, beets. I put bone broth, kefir, and some kombucha in it.
Okay, there you go.
So I kind of use that as a meal. Then I would boil 4 eggs for the protein, omega acid. It's omega acid, right? Yeah, but I'm hoping that I lose some weight from that, but also I do feel better after that. I feel more energized. Like, oh, I feel really good.
It's amazing what your body can do with the proper tools. Again, that's great.
But guys, you can use my recipe. Actually, it doesn't taste bad. It tastes pretty good. What is your most treasured memory?
Oh, I have been very blessed, and I have a lot of wonderful moments. I mean, I could say that the day we legally adopted our children, I have one bio child of my own. That was incredible. And I mean, honestly, when I went into labor, my water had broken. I was early, and I, called my sister and told her, and it was like 5 a.m. or whatever when we woke up. And one of the most special moments to me was, she lives in Michigan, and I didn't know, my husband's like, you need an epidural because I'm on this Pitocin, and all you mothers know what Pitocin is. And the contractions were crazy, and my sister just walked into the room in Florida. So I was shocked and surprised because she lives in Michigan. I wasn't expecting it, but apparently when I called her at 5 o'clock, she booked literally the next flight at 6:30 to fly down. And beyond having the magical moment of having a child, having one of my most cherished people in my life, in addition to my husband, I love him too, but I really love my sister. And that was just so special to me, to have her sacrifice to be there for me. I love to give to others, but I really appreciate those moments when people make that huge step for me.
Everybody wants something like that.
I mean, I have a lot. I have a lot of wonderful moments.
But that's the most treasured one.
That is definitely the one that sticks out in my mind. That was relatively recent, yeah.
Oh, that's nice. When did you have your child?
My youngest is 3.
Ooh, wow. Still going through the terrible 3s, right?
Yeah, they kind of become
I don't have
an
a kid,
asshole
so.
for a little while. That is true. If you're a parent of a toddler, a lot of your conversations are like, "Good morning, sweetheart." No. I'm like, okay. Or, "Go get your shoes on." No, it's not. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. I don't know. Yeah, so toddlers go through this personality change. She's kind of phasing out of it, but there is a time I'm like, something's possessing you. This is not, something's possessing. Yeah, it's a little crazy, especially when I had our foster children, because they were so malnourished and not loved with interaction. They were just a flat effect. They just sat where you put them, didn't really go anywhere, never crawled out of bed, just didn't do anything, the youngest ones. And now to have a healthy, well-loved toddler running around trying to scramble her own eggs, I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea even what was wrong at that time, because it was just, it's night and day.
Well, more power to you. You got so many kids, and you're level-headed.
I have moments.
You got moments. Well, of course you're gonna have moments. This is the last question, and I ask this question to everyone, and it's a very deep question too. It's a 2-part question also. What is the worst thing you have ever done, and what is the best thing you have ever done in your life?
Well, the best thing I think would be to adopt our children and foster. I don't know. I have. It's funny. I remember there's a store called Meijer in Michigan, and I remember there were 2 baking sheets stuck together, and I think they only scanned one, and this is back when I was 18 years old, and I still feel guilty about it. I'm not saying that's the worst thing, but that pops into my head immediately. I know. I mean, I've made mistakes, fighting with my parents, and I don't know. I guess I'd have to think about that. I don't know. Best thing is definitely adopting our children. I think that there's nothing that I could be more proud of. Yeah, I'm sure, like, lying. I guess the worst thing that didn't really have any consequences is when I was a teenager myself, I wasn't really supervised by my parents. They weren't really involved. So and then my mom worked nights, so I would just go out and do whatever I wanted to. Like, I was going to, like, 16 years old, going to parties with 20-year-olds and stuff like that. Oh, I skipped a lot of school. How about that?
Makes sense.
I skipped a lot of school. Like, I always got really good grades, but I remember being pulled into the counselor's office, and they're like, you have 33 absences in your first credit. They're like, I don't know how you're still getting an A, but, like, you need to come to school more. But by my senior year, I had moved out and was working multiple jobs and didn't really, like, I was tired, and if my first hour wasn't going to do anything productive, I didn't go. So I went on the days of the test and when homework was due, but I missed a lot of school. My senior year in high school, I skipped lunch. Like, I got suspended. Yeah, but I graduated with honors. Like, I still pulled up those grades.
Oh my God. Well, if you got the A's, it doesn't matter.
I did. I had AP Calculus.
Ooh.
Thank goodness it was my fourth hour, because by then I was definitely at school.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
AP. Ugh. All right. Well, thank you again for doing this episode. It was very, very enlightening, very educational. It did shine a light on foster care for me, because I would tell people, because of my experiences especially that experience I talked about earlier about the kids where I had to take them and put them in a different home. I know in the future I want at least adopt one child from a foster system, and that's always been like a kind of like a little goal for me. I want to do it in the future where I actually everything's stable. I have a good house. Like, all right, I'm ready to do this. At least one kid, and then I want to have. Actually, as a little joke, I want to have like a black child, and I want to have a white child, so that when we actually go to PTA meetings, people are confused. Like they're going to look at me like, wait a minute, he's brown.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, you will be your eyes will be certainly open for the way minorities are treated. Well, I'm sure you know a little bit, because it's hard. One of my friends from Michigan, once you say you adopt or you're in foster care, everyone talks about it. So I actually know a lot of people, which I wouldn't know that I know them because no one talks about it. They're Caucasian, adopted a black girl, and it can be hard. There's a lot of, and you're very aware of how people are treated, because you're like, wait a minute, you would never do this to whatever, and hopefully our society evolves and gets better at that. But yeah, like, having a multiracial family is a whole nother challenge in foster care, I'm sure. But that's why we have balance. Like, my husband's in real estate, which offers a flexible schedule. So if there's somewhere we really needed to be, we could do that. And I'm actually, I know I'm an ICU nurse, but I'm also getting my real estate license to support him in that. So then we get to spend time together and being a part of people's happy moments. Like, getting that key to your first house was a very special moment for me, and sharing that with other people is just really exciting. So when you are ready to buy a house, call Brian Crocket. Brian with an I, Crocket with one T. His business site's on Facebook too, but like, we have to have that balance. We have to have those joyous moments. Like, you can't, one of the parenting books that I read talked about happiness for yourself. Like, you have to give to yourself too. You can't just give to others constantly, because eventually you won't have anything left. So taking those happy moments and sharing them with other people is a good way that we balance our otherwise, as you know, stressful and slightly traumatic life.
Yep, and we really need that today too. Thank you again for doing this. It was a great episode. I loved it. One of my favorite ones. I'm not blowing. I keep getting this phrase wrong. Blowing smoke up your ass. Is it smoke up your ass?
Smoke up your ass. Yeah.
The last episode I did it, I said the same thing, like, I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt. And I was thinking, like, what's the right way to say that? And she's like, oh yeah, that is the right way to say that. But thank you again for doing this. And for everyone's listening, come check out the website, atabooolife.com, where you can read some interesting articles, short stories, poems, because I am that sappy. And you also can check out other episodes of podcasts. Thank you again for listening, and have a great day.